Quick question. BS aside, how long do you actually think you can survive in an apocalypse? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, on to the video. At the Shinkan Alliance Southern Branch, a weary young traveler arrives, scanning the seemingly empty base and wondering where everyone could be. After all, this was supposed to be the assembly point for their mission. The traveler is Shinkan Sho, codename Lizard, and his role is intelligence. Sho's musings are interrupted by the appearance of a towering figure, who, flexing his bulging arms, sarcastically remarks, "I heard this mission was supposed to be tough, but here we've got a total rookie showing up." Sho, acknowledging the new arrival, quickly bows and introduces himself, giving more information than necessary, his name, age, and even mentioning his homeland, Mido Country. The mysterious figure, who turns out to be Shinkan Senmun, codename Tombstone, burdened with the role of rescue, quips that it's been a while since they had a rookie. These days, most people become demon swords the moment they awaken. Sho, glancing around warily, whispers a reminder that the Shinkan Alliance forbids talking about the 12 divine beasts and demonic swords. Senmun scoffs, "What's the point in eliminating yokai if we can't even mention the 12 divine beasts and the demonic swords we become?" Sho, dejected, comments that the rumors must be true. The Alliance deliberately avoids discussing the 12 divine beasts. Senmun confirms this, explaining that for senior members who've already gained wealth and fame, it's not worth risking war with the divine beasts. He advises Sho, telling him that no matter what the higher-ups are doing, he should develop a sense of duty to save people, not just chase money or power. "It's the best way to avoid becoming a corrupt demonic sword," he adds. Sho, like an obedient student, nods. Then, circling back, he asks, "How did Senmun know he was a rookie? Was it because of his new Shinkan uniform?" Senmun smirks. "I'll tell you if you can draw your sword." Sho, eager to accept the challenge, takes a stance, causing a light breeze and dust cloud to form around him. With a serious face, he reaches for his ribcage where his sword begins to emerge. Finally, he draws his weapon, a gigantic blade with serrations like a massive saw. But the act doesn't come without a price, as his brand new uniform is torn to shreds. Sho, horrified, cries out over his ruined uniform, while Senmun bursts out laughing. "That's how I knew you were a rookie. Your uniform doesn't have any alterations for drawing your sword." Sho, still bitter, retorts that Senmun could have just told him that instead of making him destroy his uniform. Senmun chuckles, telling him it's better to experience it firsthand than be told 1,000 times. He should get his uniform altered unless he wants to destroy it every time he drew his sword. Reading between the lines, Sho asks if Senmun draws his sword from his left arm. Senmun just laughs, replying, "Maybe it's a trick to confuse my opponents." Noticing new arrivals, Senmun challenges Sho, asking if he can guess where the two newcomers draw their swords. Sho admits he can't tell just by looking. Senmun uses this as a teachable moment, saying, "Not being able to predict where the sword draw comes from is one of the basic tactics of Shinkan." I don't blame Sho, though, because the new arrivals turn out to be absolute mommies, seemingly in contrast to each other. They are the slutty Shinkan Maki and the conservative Shinkan Shion. Maki complains about their first field deployment being a group mission, which would reduce her number of prey. Shion, ever the pragmatist, agrees, grumbling about having to split the reward, emphasizing her nickname, Lone Shark. Gazing mischievously at her friend, Maki suggests they spar after the mission to settle their previous fight. Shion immediately declines, refusing anything that doesn't bring her money. Maki, knowing her well, teases, "Too bad, I was going to wager my earnings from this mission." Falling for the bait, Shion accepts the challenge, proposing a best-of-3 match. I don't want to go on without acknowledging this panel. Damn. I almost excused myself to use the bathroom real quick. Maki Mami for the win. Sho, still a bit green, turns to Senmun and asks, "Didn't you just say Shinkan shouldn't chase after money and power?" Senmun, a bit embarrassed, replies that there are always some exceptions. Switching the subject, Senmun warns Sho that revealing his sword as soon as someone asks is also a rookie mistake. A Shinkan sword form is a key tactic. Don't show it carelessly. Sho points to a figure holding a drawn sword and asks, "Then why is that person's sword out?" The figure in question, an absolute Chad striking a cool pose, is Shinkan Nice, codename Goldeye. His role, protection. Senmun replies that for someone as goated as him, such tactics are unnecessary. He further explains that the reason a rookie like Sho was allowed to join this high-difficulty mission was mostly because Nice would be joining them. Sho, curious, asks Senman if he knows Nice. The latter replies that he does, though this is the first time seeing him in person. We learn that in the early days, the Shinkun Alliance bestowed a title to the 9 strongest Shinkun members who were tasked with combating the 12 divine beasts. They were the 9 heavenly swords. However, 2 of the 9 betrayed the alliance and became demonic swords. Their positions have remained vacant to this day. Recently, however, 2 absolute geniuses have risen with remarkable achievements and feats, and are widely considered as candidates for the 9 heavenly swords. One of them is said to have white hair and gold eyes. I'm sure you all know who he is, our boy Yuhwa. Curious, Sho asks if Nice is a candidate for the 9 heavenly swords, and Senman confirms this. His blindfold probably hides his golden eyes. Sho looks contemplative, and Senman notices. You envious of the title of 9 heavenly swords? Sho quickly denies it, saying he was just a rookie. Senman then points out another rookie mistake, revealing his name and origin right away. He gestures toward a strange fellow wearing a beast mask, lazily resting on the roof. That's Shinkon Unknown, role protection, code name, Inukamen. Notice how he keeps his identity hidden. A sudden voice calls the group to attention. A noble MILF mommy, elegant and commanding, announces the mission briefing. Her partner explains that the mission is to exorcise yokai in Fog Village, in the domain of Tsukaba, and investigate the cause of their appearance. The reward: 1 coin per yokai and an additional 50 coins if they can resolve the root of the problem. Lone Shark perks up at the mention of the generous reward, while Sho is puzzled. 3 coins could cover a family's monthly expenses. Senman, more experienced, comments, that probably means the mission is dangerous. The noble mommy informs them that the transit carriage is ready, and they should depart soon. As they watch the carriage leave, the noble MILF asks her partner, who turns out to be her grandfather, if everything will be all right. They had experienced multiple failures in the mission after all. The Chad grandpa tells her not to worry. They've assigned a monitor from the Alliance, and most importantly, the goat Nice is with them. The scene shifts to Fog Village, a beautiful but eerily deserted place bathed in the glow of the setting sun. Senman comments on the odd quietness for a village known for its hot springs, and the village chief explains it's due to the yokai attacks, which have driven away tourists and forced villagers indoors. Lone Shark, quick to note the contradiction, points out the surprising generosity of the village's reward despite its desperate situation. Sho adds that as a tourist spot, the village probably charged exorbitant prices, but the chief denies this, saying the reward is funded personally by Lord Tsukaba. Nize, stepping ahead of the group, told them that they had a few guests they needed to welcome first before proceeding. Drawing his sword, he stood tall before a full pack of yokai, thirsty for blood. The yokai, responding to his challenge, charged forward, their heavy bodies moving with frightening agility for creatures of their size. Senman, unbothered by the charge, quipped that judging by their timing, one might assume they arrived early and were waiting for them. Sho replied, saying the timing was indeed suspicious. The 2 mommy, not ones to overthink things, quickly leaped to join the fight, as the yokai stones were taken by the ones who captured them after all. Beast Mask also swiftly joined the fight, leaving Sho and Senman behind. The rookie, eager to prove his skills, geared up to join the fight as well, but was stopped by Senman. He instructed Sho to stay behind and protect the chief. He should watch and learn from the veterans instead. As a yokai charged at him, Senman coolly drew his sword, taunting the yokai for choosing the wrong opponent as he readied his attack. Leaping at the yokai, he swung his sword in quick succession, landing multiple blows on the yokai's head. The yokai, tanking the hits, countered with a right jab to Senman's face, which he barely blocked. The veteran, with his blood boiling, called the yokai impressive, saying it was worthy for him to reveal his true strength against it. I know it might seem flashy, but honestly, if you paid attention, you'd know that Senman, the veteran, was actually pathetically weak. Compared to the others, he was barely surviving. We switched to our busty Mami Maki, dodging a claw attack from the yokai. From her leaning position, sparks appear on her palm, indicating a sword being drawn. True to form, a blade arcs through the air, perfectly stabbing a yokai through the skull. Our busty Mami, now squatting, doesn't give the yokai time to counter. She swiftly rises, unleashing her signature technique. 1 sword, 1 kill. Numerous different swords emerge from all over her body, floating around her. With swords in hand, she blitzes through the yokai, landing precise headshots. Wherever she passes, turns into a burial ground for the yokai, all killed by a single blade through the skull. Her devastating rampage is stopped, however, by a giant yokai, one vastly bigger than the rest. Maki, akin to an ant in its presence, curses. Although flashy, her technique had a really long cooldown, leaving her completely defenseless. The yokai, capitalizing on her weakness, unleashes a mighty punch towards her. The punch, only halfway through, is stopped by a whip sword latching onto the yokai's arm, digging deep and drawing blood. At the end of the whip sword is our conservative mommy Shion, gliding through the air, giving the folks some great fan service. Pulling on the sword, Shion is propelled towards the giant yokai. Performing a drift maneuver, she glides across the yokai's body, leaving a deep cut in her wake. Jumping back from the creature, she pulls on the sword and completely splits it in two, blood and body chunks flying everywhere. True to her loan shark name, she swiftly reaches for her notebook, listing down the life-saving measures she'd just performed, intending to charge Maki for it later. Maki denies the claim, insisting she wouldn't die from a mere yokai. Over at the boy's side, a mighty blow, glowing in a blue aura, squarely lands on a yokai's head, easily bashing it in. This was the Thunder Fist by Beastmask. Nice and Beastmask, like a well-oiled machine, effortlessly dispatch the yokai, their prey's limbs dropping like flies. Continuing his charge, Beastmask performs the lightning headbutt, delivering a blow to the yokai powerful enough to curve its face in. He proceeds with the simple kick technique, sending the yokai flying. Nice, having finished chopping a yokai's head off, yells at Beastmask, telling him to stop making up weird names for his techniques and just draw out his sword. Beastmask, now choking the lights out of a yokai, replies that the sword Nice was wielding was just a normal sword and not one drawn from his body. Nice, being the goat, calls Beastmask perceptive. He says that he'd vowed not to draw his sword until he avenged his master. Hearing his reason, Beastmask calls him impressive as well. I'm not sure if you guys have picked up on it yet, but obviously these two are Ren and Yuhwa. It's actually pretty obvious. Back to Sho and the chief, the latter is scared by a dead yokai. Sho comforts him, telling him he wouldn't be defeated by such a yokai. He had no reason to worry. Noticing the chief's sullen face, he remarks that the chief seemed more frightened by something else other than the yokai. This accusation deeply startled the chief. He asked what Sho meant, but the rookie downplays it, telling him not to worry about it. We see that the squad is finished with their warm-up. Maki Mami complained about her clothes getting dirty, while Lone Shark is busy tallying her kills, preparing for the reward. Maki, eyeing her clothes, said she'd like to wash up before eating. Shion, still tallying her kills, teases her, telling her she was too flashy in the fight. Senman, bloody, commented that it was unnecessary for them to get involved. They could have managed without them. Beastmask, however, quickly calls him out on his BS, reminding him that he fought to the death against only one yokai. The chief, appreciative of their efforts, welcomes them to use the hot springs as they await their meals. Beastmask complains, saying he wanted to eat first before washing up. Senman accepts the chief's invitation, saying it's a good thing he's covered in yokai blood. Sir? I believe that's your blood. Later on in the hot springs, Maki Mami, with a nosebleed moment, soaks in the steamy water. She remarks that she's definitely more suited for field work than office work. Soaking up in a hot spring after a fight is what she needed. Shion, adding a little feast for the eyes, questions her, asking if she didn't find the mission odd. Maki nonchalantly brushes it off, saying they should just knock out any problem they'd come across. She turns to Shion, telling her she's always overthinking things. Shion teasingly comments that with a monitor like her, the alliance was going downhill. Maki, switching topics, commented on something the Chads actually want to know about. She asked Shion if her chest grew bigger. Shion, embarrassed, asked why she was suddenly talking about her chest. Why don't they talk about the steam covering all the good stuff? Over at the boys' side, the guys are just chilling in the water, enjoying the lack of soundproofing. Senman, gazing at Beastmask, asked where Sho was. He was with him earlier. Beastmask simply replied that the rookie went to check on something. The scene takes a grotesque shift, with a bloody severed arm laying on the floor. Turns out the arm belongs to Sho, who finds himself in a rather precarious situation, facing a giant yokai, one vastly bigger and more powerful than the others. Helpless in his dire situation, the beast swiftly swallows him whole. Early the next morning, the squad, led by the chief, stared solemnly at the severed and discarded hand of Sho. The chief informed them that a villager had stumbled upon it on his way to the farm. He hypothesized that it might belong to Sho, the squad's missing companion. Without a word, and with only concerned faces, the squad collectively stared at the bloody arm. Senman, always the fake veteran, analyzed that based on the arm's elasticity and muscle strength, it should belong to Sho. Honestly, I don't know if this guy is pulling a god Usopp or if he's the real deal. Nyes chimed in, saying the probability of Sho still being alive was very low. Shion agreed, highlighting the lack of signs of struggle or abduction nearby. Maki Mami joined the conversation, questioning Beastmask and asking if he was the last to see Sho alive. Beastmask admitted to this, clarifying that Sho had left to investigate something after they entered the hot springs. Shion noted that it was a common mistake by hot-blooded rookies to go solo on their investigation and end up dead. Nise interrupted their mini-discussion, saying the arm had been cut off by a single swift blade. To achieve that, the yokai responsible must be of a higher grade than the ones they fought the previous day. Despite his serious analysis, the trio of Mommies and Beastmask just looked at him in shock, puzzling our boy. Maki Mami, with her bouncy plot, exclaimed in surprise, asking Nisi if he could see what was in front of him, referring to his blindfolded state. Nise nonchalantly replied that the fabric used in the blindfold was see-through. He just didn't like lights. He further pointed out that even when they were traveling to the village the previous day, he had to complete half the journey driving the carriage after the chief got lost. The squad, obviously disappointed, had different reactions to his truthful declaration. Senman said something about the cloth hiding his golden eyes, but no one cares about that. Let's focus on our mommies. Our busty mommy, Maki, stated that if he wore a blindfold, then it was only logical to open a third eye, vehemently gesticulating her meaning. Our other mommy, Shion, disappointedly commented that the blindfold wasn't a power-sealing one but a light-blocking one. Beastmask, ever the weird one, stated that the blindfold should have awakened the power of darkness within Nise. Nise, having had enough of their useless chatter, shouted at them to shut up. Picking up the severed arm, he opted to leave before the squad's idiocy caught up to him. He further highlighted that the marks on the arm proved the opponent was not a yokai, something Senman actively agreed with, speculating that it might be the work of a yosu or, in the worst-case scenario, a yokai. Beastmask, confused by their ramblings, asked what they were talking about and what the so levels they were spouting were. The two mommies asked how he had been doing Shinkan activities without knowing such basics. Senman aka God Usopp dropped some exposition, highlighting the different levels of yokai. They were divided into 4 groups. The 4th-grade yokai were mindless creatures with low intelligence and normally attacked in groups. The 3rd-grade yosu usually acted alone, had basic intelligence, and could speak. The 2nd-grade yokai had considerable intelligence and fluency in language, often disguising themselves as human after feasting on them. The 1st-grade phantom yokai were literally phantom yokai. I don't exactly know what that means, but our busty mommy said it, so I'll just go with it. In history, phantom yokai had only shown up twice, both times ending in disaster with failed subjugations. Particularly in the case of Shuten Doji, who went up against 300 Shinkan and led to them losing 90% of their power. Shion Mami explained that humanity survived even after the failed subjugations, because the phantom yokai didn't seem particularly interested in humans. Senman, bringing everyone back on topic, noted that the situation in the village pointed to a high-grade yokai's involvement. Per the Alliance's rules, they needed at least 6 Shinkan to proceed with the investigation. Since Sho was missing, they had to cancel the mission. Shion agreed, stating that completing the mission while going against the Alliance's rules meant they wouldn't be rewarded. Senman corroborated her deduction, stating that rewards aside, failing to follow the rules might lead to other penalties. The village chief, sensing the odd change in the air, worriedly asked if the squad would abandon them. Beastmask reassured him, saying he didn't care about the rules, he'd simply defeat all the yokai. Maki Mami, who turns out to be a battle-crazy mommy, said she'd stay for the village's peace. However, from her perverted grin and blushed face, we know she's getting hot and bothered by her lust for battle. Shion Mami, who initially wanted to give up on the mission due to a lack of reward, immediately doubled back after hearing about the exuberant rewards promised. Senman, grabbing Beastmask by the shirt, gloomily said he'd seen countless Shinkan who'd lost their lives because of such reckless bravado. He still remembered their miserable end. Beastmask, unfazed, commented that it was good if he remembered such heroic Shinken who didn't give up, despite facing inevitable death. Senman, seeing no peaceful resolution to the problem, drew his sword, planning to stop the squad by force. Maki interrupted their standoff, saying that Sho getting killed by a yokai was just speculation. During such group missions, it wasn't uncommon for a dark blade to appear, targeting their group members instead of the enemy. She speculated that there could be a dark blade among them. Shion, gearing up for battle, told Maki not to create false justifications for a fight, as it would hinder their mission. Beastmask chimed in, saying that if there was a dark blade, it would be Senman. No Shinken would so easily give up on their comrade. Senman, reacting to the accusation, drew his sword and swung it at Beastmask, instructing him to take off his suspicious mask before accusing him. Beastmask, easily catching Senman's attack barehanded, rebutted that the suspicious one was Senman. It made no sense for a Shinkan to be as weak as him. Maki, the battle-lust mommy, took advantage of the heated exchange. Charging at the duo, she drew her sword and delivered an attack at them both, saying they could easily figure out the dark blade by duking it out. Her nonsensical words enraged both Beastmask and Senman, who asked her what the hell she was even talking about. Before Maki could cause any more mayhem, 2 whip swords emerged from her shadow, swiftly binding her. The culprit for this attack was Shion, using her shadow detection art, false imprisonment. She didn't mind Maki making up excuses to satisfy her battle lust, but she wouldn't tolerate her threatening their mission and reward. The village chief, watching all the chaos, asked Nisi if he wasn't going to stop the fight. Our boy, still nonchalant, told him not to worry. He explained that those who awakened Shinken abilities become more aggressive in the face of others' deaths, and it is this aggression that drives them to continue battling yokai. Staring silently at the fighting group, he told the chief not to worry. He wasn't like those mindlessly fighting guys. Saying so, he drew his sword and promptly sheathed it again, causing a loud bang that immediately drew the group's attention, ending the fight. With their attention drawn to him, he informed the group that even if there was a dark blade, they'd handle it when it revealed itself. As for the mission at hand, they didn't have to follow the Alliance's recommendations. The squad collectively knew what he meant, as the Heavenly Swords or their candidates didn't have to follow the Alliance's recommendation. They could act independently. Their tense moment was interrupted by the shouts of little kids calling out for their grandpa. The children, a boy and a girl, ran towards the squad, marveling at meeting real Shinken. The old man, noticing the squad's puzzled gazes, explained that his daughter had died a few years ago, and now the 2 were his only blood relatives. Squatting to welcome his grandkids, the chief asked what they were doing there. They were supposed to wait for him at home. The older of the 2, the girl, answered that Manabu, the boy, wanted to see the Shinkan. The boy in question, Manabu, was busy marveling at the sight of the squad, calling them cool. His sister rebuked him, instructing him to show proper etiquette for meeting adults. The young boy, startled from his reverie, quickly bowed to the group. Our battle-lust mommy, face blushed from the children's cuteness, received a teasing remark from Shion, saying that she apparently liked something other than fighting. Maki, squatting to talk to the cute bundles of joy, asked them for their names. The oldest answered that she was Natsuki, 7 years old, and her brother was Manabu, 4 years old. The chief, hoping to send them off, asked them to head back home, but Manabu refused, saying he wanted to play with Maki. Well, I don't blame him. I'd like to play with Maki Mommy too. Nisei, calling out to the chief, asked him for a favor. He wanted to split the group into 2 and investigate the village, and he wanted the children to guide them. The chief, obviously reluctant, wanted to refuse, but Manabu swiftly agreed, volunteering for the job. Natsuki told him not to worry. She'd look after Manabu. Though still worried, the chief could only reluctantly accept. We get a cool montage of the group splitting up and investigating the village. From the residence to the fields, they went at it until sunset, and the day was done. Back at the inn, we see Beastmask sprawled out on the floor, lamenting his exhaustion, saying hunting yokai would have been easier. The 2 mommies, walking into the inn, asked how his investigation went, and if he'd discovered something unusual. Beastmask immediately pointed an aggrieved finger at Nisei, accusing the latter of saying he was going to investigate the village, only to spend the whole time chatting with the chief. Nisei replied that he wanted to confirm his suspicions about the chief. Maki chimed in, saying that the chief was definitely suspicious. She noted a strange caution when he interacted with his granddaughter. Cheyenne, puzzled, asked how they could suspect the kids, especially with how they excitedly bragged to their friends about knowing Shinkan. She believed the Lord was the most suspicious, as spending so much money on the rewards wasn't normal. Beastmask, drawing their attention, informed them that the Lord wasn't weary of his granddaughter. He was worried about her. However, what puzzled him the most was that, despite walking around the village, the only children around were the two siblings. This revelation greatly shocked the group. Nisei urgently shot up, asking where the kids were. Cheyenne replied that Senman had taken them home. As they prepared to act, Natsuki called out to them, informing them that Senman had a message for them. She innocently reported that Senman had pulled out of the mission and planned on returning home to make grave markers for his fallen comrades. Maki, startled, asked if the message was fake, but Cheyenne rejected the idea, saying the code matched that of Senman. Nice, taking charge, asked Natsuki when her mother had died. The little girl, counting, answered that she had passed away when she was 2 years old. The group, doing the quick math, noted that it was 5 years ago. Yet the younger sibling was 4 years old. Senman was in grave danger. The scene switches to Senman, carrying Manabu on his back. The suspected yokai asked him if he was really going to give up and leave. Senman confirmed this, saying that adults should know not to get involved with things that didn't make sense. Unbeknownst to him, the cute kid, Manabu, had dropped all pretenses, taking on a more evil form, his vile aura radiating. Manabu, secretly drawing his sword, questioned Senman. If what Senman said was true, then why did he send Natsuki away? Senman, seemingly unaware of the murderous intent Manabu was emitting, casually replied that it was a precaution, just in case Manabu used her as a hostage. Manabu, unveiling part of his yokai transformation, smirked and called Senman perceptive. However, it was already too late. Saying this, the yokai baby struck at Senman, its tiny dagger aiming for a lethal blow. Blood splattered in the air, indicating that the blow had indeed landed. But just when it seemed over for our god Usopp, the panel zoomed in, showing that he had blocked the attack. The blood came from a slight cut on his cheek. Although it's unclear how such a tiny slice could produce so much blood. It's Senman, our god Usopp we're talking about. Dude might have even bluffed the manhwa artist into glazing him a bit. Smirking sardonically, he teased the yokai, saying he had enough experience to handle situations like this without any prior countermeasures. The yokai baby, not buying the bluff, attacked again, telling Sen Usopp that his bluffs wouldn't work. Sen Usopp, as if to prove he wasn't bluffing, swiftly grabbed the yokai baby, yanking it forward and slamming it into the ground with force, creating a miniature crater. The yokai's small dagger flew from its hand. Hold the fuck on, Senman. Where did all this strength come from? And more importantly, why didn't you use it on Maki-Mami? The yokai baby, knocked down, got back up, and, enraged, questioned Senmon, asking if it was acceptable to treat a baby so roughly. Senmon, not backing down, replied that it was an adult's duty to discipline foolish children, especially a damned yokai. The yokai baby, still grinning maliciously, drew his sword. The sword, bathed in green flames, didn't fully manifest. It was still attached to the baby, seemingly impaling him. Senman noticed this odd change and donned a somber expression. He noted that although yokai sometimes used weapons, there was only one case where a yokai could use a divine sword. If they had consumed a divine swordsman. The evil smirk on the yokai's face confirmed his suspicion. Slightly worried, Senman asked the yokai if he had eaten sho. The yokai baby casually confirmed, saying stronger divine swordsmen usually satisfied his hunger. But sho had been a weakling, leaving him unsatisfied. That's why he had come out again looking for more prey. Sen Usopp, now enraged, attacked without another word. However, the yokai baby easily dodged, putting distance between them and mocking Senman's swordsmanship as slower than his perception. Deciding to go on the offensive, the yokai baby attacked, spinning like a top and using the sword impaled in his body to create a 360-degree weapon of destruction. He unleashed a barrage of attacks on Senman, who could barely hold his ground, gradually losing ground against the yokai baby. Inevitably, the yokai parried Senman's attack, leaving him open for a counter. Mocking Senman, The yokai teased that it wouldn't be satisfied today, even after devouring him. With this, it grabbed its sword and unleashed a powerful slash across Senmon's body, his blood staining the ground crimson. Gazing down at his fallen foe, the yokai baby mocked him as a failure. Senmon, initially solemn, suddenly smirked. He called out to the yokai, reminding it that he hadn't set up the situation without a countermeasure. With a swift movement, he lunged and locked the baby yokai into a bear hug. The baby yokai, unamused, mocked him, calling it a desperate last stand. But when it realized it was truly trapped and couldn't break free, panic crept onto its face. Our boy had used his trump card, immutable strength. As his body began to turn to stone, Sen Usopp taunted the yokai, telling him that he could hold it there, especially since its body was still in human form and not yokai form. The yokai baby, panicking, demanded to be let go. Senmon calmly replied that it wasn't up to him. Once the technique was activated, it was automatic, releasing only when he was safe or dead. He informed the yokai that it would die there, and he just needed to hold on until backup arrived. A brief backstory on our boy Senmon shows that he used to long for recognition. He never slacked off, believing in the saying that effort would not betray him. But as he grew older, constantly struggling in life-or-death battles, he finally saw the error of his ways. While he had to give his all just to survive against basic yokai, others like Aiji and Hibuna easily dispatched them. Watching these two prodigies breeze through what he struggled with, he realized the harsh truth. Effort can never surpass talent. Even so, he kept going, believing he could grow stronger. But his ability, almost like a curse, was simply a power that allowed only him to survive. He watched his comrades die gloriously in battle, while he could only look on, no different from a tombstone. Yet he refused to give up. Even if no one acknowledged him, he was resolute to make a difference in his own way. Sen Usopp's backstory is really tragic, but moving on. Who is this milfy demon mommy? Did he really think I'd overlook a demon mommy because he was giving a sad backstory? Dude is underestimating just how down bad I am. Anyway, back to the story. The yokai baby, noticing a crack in Senmon's technique, laughed. He mocked Senmon, saying he'd die before help arrived. Flashing a brilliant smile, Senmon sardonically replied that this just meant his safety was guaranteed. Suddenly, shadowy tendrils erupted from the ground, swiftly binding the yokai. Hearing a shout urging him to fall back, Senmon quickly released the yokai, his lethal wound still leaking blood. Meanwhile, the little beast found itself trapped, now the target of Makimami's signature technique, flowing sword rain. A barrage of swords fell from the sky like rain in a thunderstorm, all aiming at the yokai. Desperately seeking escape, the yokai noticed a break in the shadow binds and immediately freed itself, dodging the barrage. Busty, Makimami, seeing her attack missed, yelled at Shion for not holding the yokai in place. Shion Mami casually replied that she'd already warned her. Her technique became unstable after sunset, so it wasn't her fault. The yokai, furious at the two baddies for arguing while ignoring him, finally abandoned his restraint. Charging at them with twin daggers, he resolved to feast to his heart's content. With the starry sky as a backdrop, it lunged at our mommies. However, his charge was suddenly interrupted by a swift kick from Beastmask, sending him flying. Before he could process what the hell was happening, Nisa spawned in, slashing his sword and demanding the yokai's blood. Staring at the blade aimed at his neck, the yokai paled visibly. Reacting quickly, the yokai decided to unleash his trump card, Demon Transformation. Instantly, a gigantic behemoth manifested before the group. With a casual swing of its tail, it sent Nis flying, effectively thwarting his ambush. Landing with a mighty presence, the demon yokai roared, exerting its dominance. The squad, initially fired up, couldn't help but hesitate. The yokai was proving more formidable than expected. The yokai, noticing their hesitation, roared at the group, bellowing at their defiance and promising to gobble them up. Realizing the change in the situation, the squad immediately took up battle formations, each ready to counter at the slightest opportunity. Back to our boy Sen Usopp. With Beastmask's help, the bluffing Chad leaned against a wall. His grave injuries had effectively taken him out of the fight. Addressing Beastmask, he said he'd tried everything he could. His strength could only get him so far, and now the rest was up to them, the stronger ones. Beastmask, somberly gazing at his gravely injured comrade, encouraged him. They weren't the only strong ones around. He too was strong in his own way. Sen Usopp, calling him out on his bullshit, told him not to glaze him. He'd only held on tight and hoped they'd arrive soon to rescue him. Beastmask, the therapist, informed Sen Usopp that cunning yokai like the one they were dealing with would have likely escaped at the slightest sign of defeat, making it impossible to catch again. His efforts had prevented that. Channeling his inner online guru, he hit our boy with a motivational quote: "To become stronger, don't be arrogant, and don't be ashamed of yourself." Senman, falling for the budget Jordan Peterson line, eagerly asked if someone as trash as himself could really get stronger. Beastmask affirmed, saying there might be limits to talent, but there are no limits to effort. Not gonna lie, our boy Beastmask is actually cooking here. Snapping out of his reverie, Senman replied that he wouldn't believe so easily in a rookie's words, though he appreciated them. Looking up, he noticed Beastmask was long gone, fearlessly charging at the yokai. His last words echoed in the wind. "I'll appreciate it after beating the demon." Watching him go, a slight smile appeared on Senman's face. The fight wouldn't be easy, even with the goated Beastmask, but he was sure they'd manage somehow. Noticing his severe blood loss, he decided to rest up. The rest would be up to the group and Nis, the Celestial Sword candidate. Back at the fight, our conservative Mami Shion unleashed her Shadowbind technique, effectively trapping the yokai. Gazing sardonically at the beast, she accused it of causing the recent disappearances in the village. Maki Mami, joining the fight, agreed. However, the beast was proving more formidable than expected. "Maki Mami, what's up with the fan service? How is this an acceptable dodging technique?" "Not that I'm complaining." Nis chimed in, noting that there were still unresolved mysteries surrounding the yokai. Noticing the approaching Beastmask, he asked how Sen Usopp was doing. Beastmask replied that a little rest, and he'd be as good as new. Maki Mami, striking a fap-worthy pose, encouraged the squad to finish off the yokai before Senman woke up. The yokai, enraged by their chatter, told them it was too late. They should have fled as soon as he revealed himself. "Damn, bro, do you even lift?" Roaring loudly, the yokai went on the offensive. With its mighty tail, it swung at the group, sending Nis and Maki flying like ragdolls. Shion Mami, capitalizing on the demon's distraction, launched a counterattack. But her efforts were swiftly thwarted as the demon grabbed her and mercilessly slammed her into the ground. The yokai, fired up by its might, roared, tearing Shion's whip sword to pieces and further emphasizing its dominance. Flexing all its muscles, the yokai emitted a powerful aura, a foreboding sense of doom settling over the group. Maki Mami, picking up on the ominous change, shouted a warning to the group. Nis chimed in, urging them to block the attack and stop the yokai at all costs. Solid advice, but what the fuck is going on here? "Nis, how dare you defile our busty Mami?" Responding to the warning, Beastmask swiftly made his move. Using his signature high jump technique, he sprang into the air, rising far above the demon. Using gravity to his advantage, he launched a devastating punch on the yokai's head, caving it in and slamming the beast onto the ground. Task completed, the mysterious hero performed a flip, landing majestically before the squad. Just like that, the enemy was felled in a single punch, courtesy of Beastmask. The squad was understandably shocked, wondering how it was even possible. But there was no time to dwell on it. They had more pressing matters. The yokai wasn't dead yet. They needed to cut off its head to be sure. Nis also had a burning question he needed answered. Pointing his sword at the fallen yokai, he demanded to know why the chief had called them for help and involved the alliance in this mess. The yokai mocked them, calling them foolish. The chief had been acting on his orders. He was the one who instructed the chief to summon them. This revelation shocked the squad. We get a brief backstory for the yokai. Apparently, in this manhwa, everyone gets a backstory, even the yokai. Sigh. Anyway, the yokai was originally a mutant among demons, small and weak from birth. For years, it survived by consuming weak human children. That continued until one day, when it was preparing to consume another child, a divine swordswoman appeared. He thought it was the end of the road, but then something unexpected happened. The mighty swordswoman got down on her knees, begging for the child to be spared and offering herself instead. Initially confused, the yokai quickly recovered and questioned the swordswoman, asking why he should trust her. In response, she relinquished her divine sword. Using her technique, equivalent exchange, she traded her body for the child's safety. For the yokai, That became an unforgettable memory. Even as he consumed her, he couldn't take his eyes off the child and the swordswoman. Was this motherly love? It tasted delicious. He'd consumed countless children to no effect, but after devouring a divine swordswoman, he instantly evolved into a demon. There was no turning back. Ordinary humans no longer satisfied him. He needed divine swordsmen, stronger prey. Exploiting humanity's weakness, their willingness to do anything for their children. He struck an agreement with the villagers. They'd offer divine swordsmen, and he'd spare their children. Watching the squad's disgusted expressions, the yokai laughed maniacally. He enjoyed breaking the human spirit, showing that humans were no different from demons. I don't know how to feel about this sacrifice. Was it really the right move? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. The yokai smiled sardonically at the squad, savoring the despair in their eyes. Roaring loudly, it unleashed its true form. A multi-limbed, grotesque behemoth wielding countless swords. It flashed the blades, yelling that they symbolized humanity's hypocrisy. Maki-Mami, startled by the sight, wondered just how many divine swordsmen the yokai had devoured. Shion, however, was focused on something more dire. How were they supposed to survive against such a foe? Maki calmed her down, reminding her they had the trump card of the alliance with them. Nis. Her hopes, however, were quickly dashed. Lost in rage, Nis charged recklessly at the yokai, ready to end it. The two mommies called out, warning it was too dangerous to go alone. But our boy was too far gone, his thoughts clouded by fury. He wouldn't stop until he saw blood. The yokai, noticing the reckless charge, seized its chance. With a single punch, it launched Nis, sending him spinning like a rag doll, his pitiful expression on full display. Before anyone could react, it opened its mouth wide and chomped down on our boy. The only proof of his existence left was his sword, now masterless and alone. This sudden twist shocked everyone, especially our two mommies. Wasn't Nis the Chad supposed to be their trump card? Their insurance against the big bad yokai? How could the fool get himself eaten so easily? That wasn't Chad behavior. It was Thad behavior. The yokai grinned, savoring its tasty meal. Soon, however, its expression changed, first to mild confusion, then to downright repulsion. In another twist, the yokai spat out our boy, sending him bouncing around like a ragdoll. Damn, bro really can't catch a break. Just when we thought the twists were done, yet another twist occurred. Turns out our boy Nis was an imposter. He wasn't the real deal, just someone rocking white dye and dripped out in his signature clothes. The yokai cursed. Bootleg Nis wasn't a divine sword, just a regular human pretending to be one. What a waste of its appetite. Our two mommies, catching on to the situation, were also perplexed. Maki-Mami commented that she'd heard of imposters pretending to be divine swordsmen for clout, but she never thought she'd see one here. Shion Mommy, the money-crazed mommy, replied that they should just bounce. They didn't have a celestial candidate as insurance anymore. And to top it off, their reward was gone too. The mission wasn't worth it anymore. Beastmask chimed in, calming them down. They didn't need to fear. He was more than enough to handle the yokai. From Maki-Mami's silent sigh, it seemed they weren't buying it. Me too, buddy. However, they were divine swordsmen. They weren't actually planning on running away, not from a damned yokai. The yokai, still enraged by the deception, threw them a curveball. As punishment for their lies, moving forward, any attempt by the squad to attack, block, or even dodge its attacks would result in severe consequences. It would signal its minions to kill one of the children it held hostage. As expected, the squad was greatly shocked by such cowardly behavior. Shion Mommy, vexed by their predicament, asked what they should do. Maki, the busty mommy, being the pragmatist, told them not to overthink it. They had to take down the yokai. Even if they sacrificed themselves, there was no guarantee the yokai would let the children go. Not only that, the fiend would become exponentially more powerful after devouring them and would most likely do the same thing all over again. This is exactly what I was talking about in the previous part. When faced with the same hard choice, the divine swordswoman sacrificed herself for her child. But as a consequence, so many people died. If she had just fought, maybe things could have been different. Beastmask, the mysterious Chad, stepped forward. He volunteered to buy the two baddies some time. In the meantime, they were to figure out a solution to their predicament. Maki obviously rejected the idea. Doing what the yokai demanded was obviously suicidal. Beastmask, however, didn't listen. He was resolute. With his Luffy-themed flip-flops, he confidently stepped before the yokai. The yokai mocked him, teasing that it was ironic for him to sacrifice his life to save the children of those who willingly offered themselves to him. Beastmask ignored the taunt, telling the yokai to keep its promise. I don't know why they're making this scene so dramatic. Dude pulled up to a fight with flip-flops. That's a bona fide way to tell someone's a menace. Just look at Luffy. The yokai, obviously not getting the memo, ruthlessly stabbed Beastmask, turning our boy into Swiss cheese. In a mocking tone, it told the bleeding swordsman not to worry. Of course, it would keep its promise. The kids were valuable hostages after all. Having suffered the serious blow, Beastmask went limp, his signature mask dropping from his face. Beastmask was no longer masked. In that tense and dire moment, a gentle voice called out, asking if he was late. From the sawtooth sword held leisurely in his hand, we got a pretty good idea about his identity. Yet another twist occurred. Turns out Sho was alive all along. Okay, what the hell is going on here? When did this become a Scooby-Doo episode? Way too many twists going on. The noob divine swordsman apologized for being late. He had been held up rescuing the trapped children. Addressing Beastmask, he referred to him as boss. In a double twist, not only did Beastmask turn out to be the real leader, the top dog of the squad, but he was also our boy Yuhwa in disguise. I swear this chapter just turned into an episode of Oprah. You get a twist. You get a twist. Everyone gets a twist. Yuhwa replied to Sho, telling him it was all right. He came at just the right moment. The yokai, confused by the development, questioned Sho. Didn't it eat him the previous day? Well, not that it mattered. It had just eat him again. Turning to Swiss cheese Yuhwa, it mocked him, saying he was quite unfortunate. If Sho had pulled up just a couple of minutes earlier, he wouldn't have died such a pathetic death. At least he could have gone down fighting. Yuhwa, however, brushed off the taunts, saying it was all right. Didn't he say it before? Sho was right on time. The yokai snickered at his false bravado, asking him what he could possibly do in such a situation. Our boy, unsealing his CHADY aura, simply replied that, of course, he'd take it down. With his arms spread out, he channeled his divine energy, and, in an instant, expelled all the swords stabbed into him. Under the symphony of clanging swords, he stared down the yokai, his aura palpable. With a menacing tone, he thanked the beast for not running away. The yokai shuddered with horror, its grim reality finally dawning on it. In a desperate attempt, it lunged at our boy, hoping to take him down. Yuhwa, however, casually dodged its attacks. He lamented that just because you swing a sword doesn't mean you're a swordsman. In the same way, just because you hold a divine blade doesn't mean you're a divine blade wielder. Saying so, he gripped the yokai's arm and, in a brutal show of force, ripped it from its body, leaving the yokai screaming in agony. Our two baddies watched all of this in astonishment. Just what the hell was going on? Yuhwa clearly had white hair and yellow eyes, the signature look of the divine sword candidate. So was that him? But he was just a kid. Sho chimed in, telling them that of course he was a kid. He was 17 after all. Turning to the rampaging Yuhwa, he warned the mommies to let him be. Getting close to him when he was clapping cheeks could get them seriously injured. Senman, still nursing his injuries, approached Sho. He questioned him on how he was still alive. They had recovered his severed arm after all. Sho casually showed off his stamp, saying he had indeed lost an arm. However, he wasn't dead yet. We get a flashback to the previous night. Just before the yokai could eat him, he had activated his signature technique. Sword skill, slippery escape, lizard tail cut. The technique works by forcibly teleporting the user to a random location within a kilometer radius, and the activation condition is that an arm or a leg has to be severed. Although it sounds OP, it has a grave downside. You'll be unable to move until the severed body part regenerates. After he had escaped from the yokai, Sho was left stranded somewhere in the forest surrounding the village. He lamented getting duller after unlocking the sword skill, often finding himself in such situations by letting his guard down and underestimating the enemy. Ultimately, he had to wait in the forest until his wound recovered and had arrived at the village around half an hour before the big fight. Since he was already late, he had decided to look around the village, and that's when he discovered something interesting. There were some children trapped inside a cave on the outskirts of the village. Rescuing them was a hustle, but he eventually pulled it off. Sen Usopp questioned him about his relationship with Beastmask, aka Yuhwa. They seemed to know each other. And what about his status as a noob of the Alliance? Was that a lie too? Sho calmly replied that he had his reasons for bending the truth. However, it wasn't a lie that he was a new member of the alliance. Sighing wistfully, Senman replied that he had meddled where he didn't belong. Maki, the blonde mommy, called out to the squad. Shouldn't they be helping Beast Mask? He seemed to be struggling against the yokai. And true to her words, our boy was constantly defending, barely getting a chance to attack. Or so it seemed. Sho casually replied that Yuhwa the boss was too kind for his own good. Sen Usopp, the fake guru, chimed in, saying Yuhwa had some deep thoughts. Even Shion Mami contributed to the analysis, saying it was indeed so. She hadn't been interested in younger guys before, but now her interest was piqued. Maki, the clearly blonde mommy, asked them to speak properly. What was going on? And how come she was the only one not seeing it? Well, mommy, the world has to be fair. You already have a great and busty plot. You can't be blessed with Chad brains as well. Shion teased her, saying that for an alliance observer she was quite oblivious. Senman added to the roast, saying he feared for the future of the alliance. Even Sho, the noob, threw some shots, telling her at least she was busty and strong. Who needs brains when you're busty? Vexed, Maki shouted at them to spill it. What was she missing? Sho replied that Yuhwa was retrieving the lost artifacts or divine swords. And true to his words, the battlefield had turned into a graveyard of swords. From the sheer number, we can finally see the real consequence of the divine swordswoman's actions. Was it really worth it? All those lives. Anyway, it's not up to me to decide. The yokai, bleeding and left unarmed, hesitated to move. Yuhwa, picking up on its hesitation, mocked it. Had it finally run out of swords? The yokai, enraged, cursed our boy. Had he really baited it to take out all its divine swords? Yuhwa sardonically confirmed this. He was trash, after all, and killing it wasn't a problem. However, doing so meant the divine swords it stole would be lost forever, too. This was the only way. Seething with anger, the yokai clapped back. It didn't need those pieces of metal to end him. It would show him its true power. The power it got by devouring the divine swordsman. Saying so, the yokai launched a devastating attack, the ground cracking in its wake. Yuhwa, as nimble as ever, easily dodged the attack. Reacting quickly, he landed his counterattack, stabbing the yokai with the same sword it stole. Our boy, now amidst the garden of swords, taunted the yokai, daring it to come forward. Enraged, the yokai answered his call, charging ominously at our boy and shouting for him to face it head-on. Yuhwa, locking the fuck in, performed his signature technique, sword step. With his Mugiwara flop stomped firmly into the ground, he unleashed the first step, sound step, zooming towards the yokai with blinding speed. In a cool MC pose, he blitzed past the yokai, landing attacks so fast our eyes couldn't keep up. Divine technique, calm before the storm. As the sound finally caught up to our boy's speed, we saw the outcome of his attack. The yokai stabbed ruthlessly with multiple divine swords, its anguished throes echoing in the desolate village. Landing softly, Yuhwa performed the second sword step, sound step, second step. Before that, however, cut! Hold the fuck up. Where are your Mugiwara flops? It goes against the whole theme to discard the flops. What in the fake Luffy is going on here? Anyway, performing the second step, Yuhwa flashed toward the yokai. Just like the iconic scene by Neo from The Matrix, the force of his movements attracted the Garden of Swords, sending them flying with him toward the demon yokai. The beast, helpless in the onslaught, was stabbed mercilessly by the projectile swords, its moans bellowing out. Our boy, capitalizing on the moment, performed a backward somersault on the yokai's ass, sending even more swords stabbing into the crimson demon. CHADY technique. Unparalleled transformation. Bleeding and enraged, the demon bellowed, the magnitude of its fuck-up finally apparent to it. Yuhwa, however, didn't relent. In quick succession, he performed the first step, second step, and third step of the divine sword steps, heaven and earth net. He blitzed past the yokai with such blinding speed that his image became nothing but a phantom streaking through space. The two mommies watching from a distance were amazed by the glorious show. Shion Mami commented on there being no opening to interfere in the fight at all. Maki Mami, the battle lust mommy, was hot and bothered, wondering how someone could possibly be that strong. Our boy, oblivious to the drenched mommies watching from the sidelines, performed his finishing move. Jumping high into the sky, he finally drew his sword, divine sword, breaking iron chains. With the lumpy sword in hand, he wasted no time lunging at the yokai. The yokai, oblivious to its doom, charged in too, determined to put an end to this dreadful encounter. In a show of pure CHADY dominance, Yuhwa bashed the fuck out of the yokai's head, sending its brain flying everywhere. Divine technique, strike erase. The attack kicked up a dust storm, sending debris flying everywhere. Our two mommies, caught in the crossfire, shielded their delicate plots from the shockwave, especially Maki Mami. She had a lot to protect, if you know what I mean. Oh, and Sho was there too, but no one cares about that. As the dust finally settled, we got a glimpse of the battle's outcome. Yuhwa stood victorious before a crater, the yokai done and dusted out of this world. Shion Mami, flabbergasted, commented on the yokai being completely annihilated, not a single drop of blood left. Maki, the busty Mami, chimed in, asking if that was the power of someone close to reaching celestial sword level, beings known as the pinnacle of divine swordsmanship in the world. Sen Usopp, spawning in, glazed our boy. The demon's attack from earlier must have been brutal, yet he still stood. Was he immortal or something? Sho, in a sad tone, replied that he wasn't. Yuhwa was just enduring it, probably pushing himself too far, until his body inevitably broke. True to his words, Yuhwa finally collapsed, his wounded body giving in at last. We cut to the hostages returning to the village. Although the scene of the loved ones returning to their families should have been a tear-dropping moment. Manly tears, of course, since we are Chads. I couldn't help but get a bitter taste in my mouth. For every child returning to the village, an innocent life was taken. Although they swore to protect the children and would probably be all right with the sacrifice, it still felt like shit. So, let's cut through this, and go on to more plot. Handing the village chief a pair of divine swords, Yuhwa informed him that the yokai had drawn them first. If his guess was right, then they should belong to his daughter. The village chief confirmed this, expressing that even after so much time, he wouldn't forget his daughter's divine swords. Crying bitterly, he expressed his thanks to Yuhwa. Natsuki, confused by her grandpa's sudden outburst, cried too, trying to console him. The village chief, remorseful, apologized for his wicked deeds. He had done something foolish while trying to protect his family. Maki Mami replied that there was no use apologizing. All their crimes had already been sent to the Alliance. It would be hard escaping the consequences. The village chief acknowledged her words, resolute to face whatever punishment the Alliance gave head-on. Sho and Senman joined the fray, informing the busty Mami that they had caught and detained the lord of the village and his family. Senman revealed that based on their investigation, the lord of the territory had struck a deal with the yokai. In exchange for their safety, they allowed the yokai to settle in the village while they lured divine swordsmen to them through hefty subjugation rewards. Shion, aka Lone Shark, replied that she had always suspected the lord to be dirty. This confirmed it. As the squad discussed the case, a mysterious entity emerged from the ground close to Maki. Although I still don't know the identity of the strange silhouette, I thank it wholeheartedly for this amazing view. The mysterious silhouette, doing God's work, turned out to be a message mouse from the Alliance. The Lil Chad came bearing news from the Alliance. We cut to the village square where an official announcement was taking place. Maki, now dripped out in her official Alliance uniform, delivered the village's sentence as ordered by the Alliance. Just want to point out that this is unforgivable. How can they do this to our busty Mami? I swear I haven't been this angry since the injustice done to Hinata and Mami Tsunade in Boruto. Anyway, Maki, the not-so-busty Mami, declared that the Tsukaba family was officially stripped of their title as nobles for conniving with the yokai. In addition, the villagers of Fog Village were prohibited from moving to other villages. And as a final nail in the coffin, they wouldn't receive the protection of the Divine Sword Alliance until the current generation ended. The villagers said something in their defense, but honestly, I was still so angry about the tragedy that befell Maki to care. Speaking of Maki, she informed the villagers that, although their actions were those of parents trying to protect their loved ones, it didn't change the fact that they led innocent divine swordsmen to their deaths. Harming someone else's family to protect your own cannot be justified. And because their actions further expanded the vicious cycle, they couldn't escape responsibility. A solemn atmosphere settled on the square as soon as the verdict was announced. Yuhwa commented on the squad defeating the yokai, but ultimately failing to protect the village. Senman chimed in, noting that normally this would have been a cause for celebration, but the current atmosphere felt more like a funeral instead. Shion Mami, the money-crazy Mami, lamented that the lord who was supposed to flip the bill ended up being bankrupt, so all that trouble was for nothing. With their business done, the squad turned to leave. They still had more work to do. We cut to outside the village, where the squad interrogated the niece impersonator. The crime of impersonating a divine swordsman was treated very seriously by the Alliance, as it confused the public and deceived those who genuinely needed the Alliance's help. As such, the only acceptable punishment for this treacherous act was a swift beheading. Maki, back to being the busty mommy, would carry out this sentence personally. I don't know who prayed about our mommy's tragedy, but it seems your prayer was answered. The fraudster, having given up on survival, calmly accepted his execution. Maki, not one to hesitate, immediately drew her sword, poised to deliver the sentence. Before she could swing her sword, however, a hand stopped her, preventing her from going further. With a stern tone, Maki told the intervener that the Alliance's rules were absolute. Violating them meant they would receive the same punishment. It didn't matter, even if the person stopping her was him, our boy, Yuhwa. Yuhwa calmly replied that, even though the fraudster was a criminal, it didn't change the fact that he had killed the yokai. Actually, he might have even defeated more yokai than Sen Usopp. This sudden jab startled Senman, who shouted, asking why he was being dragged into the conversation. Shion Mami, always the pragmatist, chimed in. She agreed with Maki. Not only did the fraud impersonate a divine swordsman, but he also stole someone's identity. She couldn't accept that for any reason. However, her false bravado immediately crumbled when she learned the fraudster did it for money. That was a perfectly logical reason in her books. Sho questioned the fraudster, asking why he did it. With the sword skills he possessed, it wouldn't be a problem to make money as a bodyguard for a high-ranking official, or even an assassin. Why did he have to impersonate a divine swordsman? The fraudster resolutely replied that he had no desire to serve another lord. And as for being an assassin, he was sick and tired of killing humans. Maki, resolute in her stance, chimed in. Whatever reasons the fraudster had, it wouldn't change her decision. Holding firmly to her sword, she prepared herself for the sentencing. In a mighty swing, she slashed at the impersonator, her face solemn. Although intense, all that theatrics turned out to be for show. It turns out she had been aiming for the ropes binding the fraudster all along. Shocked by the strange development, the fraudster looked at Mami for answers. Our busty Mami calmly replied that it was her decision. Turning to Yuhwa, she asked how he'd known she wasn't going for the kill, and thus didn't stop her. Our boy replied that he didn't sense any killing intent in her sword. The fraudster, puzzled, asked why they were going against the Alliance's orders. This might put them in danger too. Shion chimed in, questioning Maki. This was indeed a problem. Maki, the recently back to being busty mommy, eased her worries. She hadn't reported the issue to the Alliance in the first place, so there was nothing to worry about. She had just wanted to show him the consequences of his actions, hence the little play. Switching to some good news, she informed the squad that, although the treacherous lord wouldn't be flipping the bill for the yokai subjugation, the Alliance had decided to give them a juicy reward for taking down the yokai, especially with such a small team. This news greatly pleased the squad, especially Shion. From the subtle blush on her face, we can tell she is hot and bothered by the news. She praised Maki, saying she had thought Maki was all brawn and no brain, but it turns out she had a thoughtful side too. Senman added to the roast, saying that he'd thought Maki was inflexible, but it turns out he was wrong. Yeah, Senman, you're definitely wrong. I believe Maki is very flexible. Very flexible indeed. Maki, donning a blushed tsundere expression, told them to cut the BS. It was time for them to leave. We cut to the two Chads, Sho and Yuhwa, walking through a dense forest. Sho commented that for Yuhwa to get information on the 12 Zodiac beasts, he needed to reach the level of the 9 celestial swords, legendary figures at the pinnacle of divine swordsmanship. Yuhwa, unbothered by the politics, replied that he didn't care about becoming a celestial sword. He only took on the mission to maintain his qualifications as a Divine Sword Alliance member. Turning to Sho, he expressed his love for the hot springs in Fog Village, suggesting they set up an alliance branch in that place. Sho, however, saw through his bullshit. He knew Yuhwa just wanted to protect the village instead of the alliance. In Sho's opinion, though, there was no point in protecting such treacherous people. Yuhwa, remembering his master Iji, responded thoughtfully. He said his master had taught them that a divine swordsman's ability wasn't about judging right from wrong. It was simply a way to get stronger. As such, he was resolute in his belief to protect everyone, no matter who they were. Gazing at the smiling Yuhwa, Sho couldn't help but feel inspired. If that was Yuhwa's wish, then all they could do was follow. Taking on a more serious demeanor, Sho asked Yuhwa what they should do about the rat that had been tailing them. Should we just cut it off? And true to his words, a strange silhouette was seen lurking in the shadows.